Wow, from New York, New York, you are watching Extra Time, driven by Continental. I'm Andrew Weeby with my partners in soccer, Kaylin Carr, Matt Doyle, David Goss. MLS is back, boys, after a long layoff. We are getting our soccer starting on July 8th. The MLS is back tournament going on for more than a month, crowning a champion that we have never seen before, frankly. Soccer for 16 straight days to get this thing started. Doyle, how do you feel? What's in your heart?
I mean, happiness, hope, all those things that you feel every summer when the great tournaments in the world sort of kick off. Like, that's what this feels like. Because like you said, 16 straight days of soccer and the urgency of the group stage and then the wildness of the knockout round. Ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, when you miss something, you appreciate it a little bit more too. And I'm excited for these morning kickoffs. I think the early kickoff is going to be a fun one. You wake up, you get a cup of coffee. I mean, I've done it as an Arsenal supporter over the years on weekends, which usually hasn't ended well for me, but this would be a good chance for maybe my Dynamo can redeem things for me. Let's go.
What I love is brackets, tournaments. That means Cinderellas and darlings. So I love the fact that there's a team that we're not thinking about and a player we're not thinking about who is going to dominate this tournament. And in like 4 weeks, it's going to be like, wow, this was an epic ride. I love that feeling every summer.
Yeah, there's going to be a star turn because we normally can't predict MLS, but how could you possibly predict what's going to happen in this tournament? All the coverage, of course, right here on Extra Time, driven by Continental, Monday and Thursdays. Wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube, we will break it down from start to finish. All the games, all the stories, interviews, every single thing you need to know. And what we want to know, rather what we want to see, is how you're experiencing this. So hit us up, use the hashtag MLS is back, tweet at Extra Time. We want pictures. We want everything, anything, videos, whatever, of you watching these games, experiencing this tournament. And let's tell people about the tournament. Dave, walk us through the format. How's this thing going down?
So June 24th, San Jose Earthquakes arrived in Orlando, the first team. So make sure to follow your teams on social media. Go to MLSsoccer.com for all the news as teams get into Orlando for July 8th, which will be the first game. And what a better way to start this than for the first time ever, Orlando versus Inter Miami. That's how you get things started, 8 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN that first day. And then you said it, 16 straight days of soccer. From July 8th to July 28th, there is 1 day off with no soccer. Otherwise, it is coming at you 24/7. Every team will play 3 group stage games, which will count in the regular season. The top 2 teams from every group will go through. The third place team in Group A, which we will discuss, which had the most teams in it. And then you've got a few rule changes, 5 subs for every team because it's 1,000 degrees and there's a lot of games coming pretty fast. And in the knockout stages, straight to penalty kicks. And what are they playing for? Well, besides pride, $1.1 million in winnings and a spot in next year's CCL. So this tournament counts for everything. It counts for the regular season. It counts for CCL. And that's what's going to make it a lot of fun.
Oh, let's go. Let's get you right to the groups right now. 6 of them, you mentioned, more teams in Group A than any other. 6 there. The top 3 teams will advance. And then 4 teams in all the other groups. We're split East and West. We're going to dig into the storylines in a little more depth in just a second. Let's take a closer look at 3 of these groups. Group B, Kaylin, what game are you looking at and what's the storyline you like?
Weeby, let me get this straight. This is a tournament format, right?
Yes.
Kind of like a playoffs?
A little bit like that.
And the Seattle Sounders are in this, right? And in Group B?
Yeah, I can confirm that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's just pencil them to go pretty darn far here. I think they're going to be the headliner of this group at least. But then if you look at, the mention of FC Dallas, I think that one really stands out to me. Luchi Gonzalez did a fantastic job last year with a young team, gave that Sounders team the toughest fight they had throughout the playoffs, went up there and gave them a real fight, did not back down. So I think those 2 are probably the favorites to make it out of Group B.
And since you love morning games, that is a 9 a.m. game. So you'll wake up with some coffee and get a playoff rematch. Dave, what about Group C? What are you looking at?
I love Group C. You've got 3 teams that made the playoffs last year. Kaylin talks about championship pedigree, Toronto FC there. You've got high-priced attackers under Bruce Arena. You've got a DC team that's brought in some new designated players. And then, of course, you've got Thierry Henry, the legend, the man himself, leading Montreal for the first time. We saw them play well in Champions League. July 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 2DN, TSN, TVA. It is the Canadian Classique, Toronto FC versus Montreal, the first time ever for Henry. Anyone can win this group, but that is the game that everyone is going to be excited to tune in for.
Canadian Classic every year, whether it's playoffs, regular season stage, it delivers. It's one of the best games in North America. It's awesome to start, but like we have one of the dormant rivalries in the league in Group D, which is the Rocky Mountain Cup. And 10 years ago, this was the best rivalry in the league. The way Colorado and RSL would go hammer and tongs at each other, that's part of Group D. The other part of Group D is Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota United. And so far, well, in the start of 2020, Minnesota United was awesome. They were playing such great soccer. They were 2-0. They were scoring goals left and right. And then Sporting Kansas City, also 2-0, also a lot of goals scored. And here's the thing. For 10 years, they've been saying, if you give Peter Vermees, a multi-million-dollar center forward, he's going to score 20, 25 goals. The team is going to get 60, 65 points. Well, they got Alan Pulido. Alan Pulido delivered in those first 2 games. I think Sporting Kansas City is clearly one of the favorites for the entire tournament.
And Group D is up for grabs. We will dig into the storylines in a little bit, but first, the biggest storyline, COVID-19 worldwide. That's why this tournament is going on. And we spoke to Margo Patukian, the chief medical officer for Major League Soccer, and asked her what happens if there's a positive test in Orlando.
Yeah, and it probably should be what happens when there is a positive test in Orlando, because, given the extensive amount of testing that we're doing, I think it would be unusual that we don't end up with a positive test. But we've got two basic scenarios that can potentially occur. And one would be that someone gets sick. Someone doesn't feel well, they develop a temperature, and in that situation, we would make sure that they are isolated. They're going to be triaged with an on-site telehealth provider. They'll be put in an isolation area within the hotel. They'll get tested. They'll be monitored medically daily, actually 3 times daily, and we'll then test them. And if they test positive, we would end up, figuring out who their close contacts are, doing the contact tracing, testing those individuals, quarantining those individuals until their tests come back, and that's kind of how we're gonna sort it out for someone that becomes symptomatic.
Win, not if, says Margo Patukian. So something to watch there. Certainly one of the biggest stories in the world, and as well in Major League Soccer as MLS's back tournament gets ready to begin. Let's take a dive into the biggest storylines, in our opinion, for this tournament. And Kaylin, come on, we were all watching that draw, and we all saw El Tráfico get drawn together. And I don't know if you did, but I jumped up and fist pumped a couple times. That's got to be arguably the biggest story in this tournament.
Oh, all eyes have been on Los Angeles, and in a lot of ways, the league, because of this rivalry and the way that it has really lived up to the billing. It has lived up to the hype. It kicked off in an incredible way. I was at the first one where Zlatan, made quite the entrance. Now, his presence or lack thereof will be felt in this one. That's one of the biggest changes to MLS this season is no Zlatan there. Now, being the Galaxy, they've gone out and got Chicharito. So to see how that dynamic plays against his friend, the last MVP of last year, Carlos Vela, I think will be an interesting one. I said it at the beginning of last year, Carlos Vela is the best player in MLS, and it's not even close. Well, fast forward, the same holds true. It's still not close. Carlos Vela, the MVP. I see them moving forward and being the favorite in the tournament. But after that, I think it's closer than people think. Those that are ready to anoint the LA Galaxy because of Chicharito might need to just look back to the first match, game 1. They were held 0-0. He didn't even have a shot in Houston against my Dynamo. They find themselves in the group. I think when it comes to the heat, the humidity of Orlando, the demands that will come onto this tournament, I think Houston Dynamo have a fantastic chance of advancing through the group. And watch out for Portland as well. Gio Savarese knows how to navigate his way through a tournament also.
Yeah, absolutely, Kaylin. Timbers love a playoff format. Sit deep, counter. They've got some new strikers. Something to note as well, the Group F winner, one of 2 group winners that will play a second-place team, not a third-place team when they get out. So it won't get easier for LAFC or the Galaxy or Portland if they're able to win this group. Sorry, Kaylin, I'm not even going to mention Houston there. But it is the playoffs. It is Houston, so you never know.
Hey, if you won't, Charlie Davies will. He will find his way onto this show, butt his way in, and say, you're overlooking the Houston Dynamo. But come on, Group E, Doyle, Atlanta United. Speaking of the anointed, the best players in the league, well, the chosen one, Joseph Martinez, is not here. What are we going to get out of Atlanta United in Group E?
I mean, the chosen one, the proven one, right? Like everything that Atlanta's done since 2017 has, in one way or another, been Joseph-centric. And in the past, in 2017, when they played without him, they at least had someone like Tito Villalba to come in and play that role, or they could do some funky things in terms of lining up with a false nine. In 2020, without Joseph Martinez, I don't think they have that luxury. Tito Villalba is gone. I don't think either Ezequiel Barco or Pity Martinez can really play as a false nine. It means Adam John is going to be leading the line for one of the glamour teams in MLS, an Atlanta team that won 2 titles last year, won the MLS Cup in 2018. Like, it feels weird. It feels weird, and it's a big moment. I mean, not just for Adam John, but it's a big moment for guys like Pity and Barco. These are guys who were multi-million-dollar, $30 million between the two of them. And this is a chance to prove that they are like Diego Valeri caliber players, Nico Ladero caliber players who can sit there and put their team on their shoulders in a tournament, get them out of the group and like through the groups, through the knockout rounds. And this is it for them. Like they have to prove that they are more than just Joseph banging in goals.
Oh, and by the way, they were purchased with one aim. Actually, 2. The first one was winning trophies. The second was replicating Miguel Almiron. We don't know how the transfer window is going to roll out, but this is an opportunity on the world stage to maybe prove their price tags were worth it. I think if you look at this group, though, FC Cincinnati, man. FC Cincinnati, it has been all chaos, all upheaval, all everything you don't want to happen on the field and in the coaching staff the first couple of years here. But they have so much more talent than they've had in the past. Jurgen Locadia wants to be there. They went and added a new coach with a big profile in Jaap Stam. Their attack is better. Will their defense stand up to the test in Orlando? That is going to be the huge question for them. I cannot wait for Hell is Real. Cincinnati, Columbus, we know the Crew are a sleeper here. But I'm looking at Group A, man. Speaking of chaos, 6 teams previously vying for 2 spots. The league got it right. They switched it up. Now it's 3 spots. But with the unbalanced schedule, you can't rely on yourself. You have to rely on other teams to do work for you in order to get the place you want to be, which is onto the knockout round. And there are 5 new coaches. We have no idea what these guys are going to bring. We have no idea how they use the 3.5 months that they've been off. We talked to NYCFC. We talked to other teams. They're doing homework assignments. Do those actually apply on the field? Is writing it down on paper the same as putting on your spikes and figuring it out on the fly? I think NYCFC and Philly are the 2 favorites. They go head-to-head on July 9th. That is absolutely a must-watch game. But Nashville and Miami, what will they be? What will the Chicago Fire be? This is the mystery box of groups, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating from start to finish.
Jim Curtin and the stability of this Philadelphia Union team, to me, makes them the favorite in the group. Then you look at the emergence of Sergio Santos, how good he played at the end of last year and the beginning of this one. And then, of course, the X Factor, Ilsinho coming off the bench. Are you kidding me? In a world of chaos, Ilsinho is the only one that could bring it together. Come on.
This dude doesn't need to be 90 minutes fit. Just give me 10 minutes, Ilsinho. That's all we need. Now, we can talk about this all we want. We don't have skin in the game. Paul McDonough does. He's the GM for Inter Miami, trying to build his 3rd expansion team. Here's what he had to say about getting out of Group A.
Yeah, I think anytime you play in this competition, winning the first game is so important, right? It gives you a little bit of breathing room, right? And if you can get a result in the next game, you feel a little bit better. But the group of 6, that's going to throw it a little bit up in the air, right? Because you don't know what happens in the other bracket within your group. So yeah, the third place could be really, really difficult.
Well, what do you know? You want to win your first game, and that's going to set everything up from there. Paul McDonough, Inter Miami, trying to do that in the first game of the tournament against Orlando City. Now let's finish up with what we do best, which is making predictions that may or may not blow up in our faces. They are the Continental Tire ExtraTime Awards. Get an official name this year. Thank you, Continental Tire. Nuhu, player of the tournament. And if you don't know what that is, it's the guy you're backing strictly for your own brand, whether it's to make you look good or give you maximum entertainment. Dave, get us started.
With me, it's obvious. You start GA Cup, you go Jesus Ferreira, former GA Cup star, versatile player. I think FC Dallas has a shot to go really far. And then you got to go, who's the former USL player that I love? Christian Casares, running the midfield for New York Red Bull. He's going to slow it down when everything else is speeding up. This is the time for him to show how good he can be.
East Coast bias there. Look, if this is the New Who Award, I'm going strictly self-serving here, and to protect my brand, I host a show called The Movement on YouTube. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And I'm going with Jonathan Osorio because he's been on the show. The episode, we want to get those numbers back up to where they belong. And Toronto FC is always a safe pick. I want to win. I'm riding Jonathan Osorio to the top.
Osorio makes a lot of sense, especially because he's showed up big in tournaments before. If you think back to the CCL run in 2018, for my brand, nobody loves the Super Draft the way I love the Super Draft. And I was really impressed by Robbie Robinson in a game and a half earlier this year. So I just think it would be amazing if the guy who started and starred for this glamorous Inter Miami team, instead of the $6 or $7 million young Argentinian national team player, was actually the number one Super Draft pick. I'm all in on the Robbie Robinson trade.
Let's go get Argentina. We're going Clemson, baby, but I'm going with the Crew because they're a lot of people's dark horse. My guy, Milton Valenzuela, man, he was hurt all last year. It killed me. A young designated player, left back. I think the best left back in Major League Soccer. He can get up and down. He can provide service. He can make Giassi Zardes maybe be the Golden Boot winner of this tournament. Milton Valenzuela, he is my guy. But let's go now to the most valuable player, the Adidas player of the tournament, as they're calling it here. But you probably understand MVP just as well. Dave, do the honors again. Who's your pick, man?
I'm going to double down on my confidence in Columbus, and I'm going to say Darlington Nagbe is going to dominate the game. He is the best possession player in MLS. He could run all day. And about midway through this tournament, everyone's going to say how Darlington Nagbe deserves to win player of the tournament, but he won't because everyone will overlook him, which means everyone will talk about it, and then everyone will vote for him. So Darlington Nagbe is my pick.
Carlos Vela.
I
cede my time. I cede my time.
Oh, that's typical.
I mean, no, that's fair. It's the right pick, right? Like, Carlos Vela is the odds-on favorite to be the most valuable player, but I'm going to be me, and I'm going to say there are two guys that I'm kind of looking for this. One is Carlos Vela's teammate, Mark Anthony Kaye, and the other is a guy who plays the same position, Paxton Pomykal. Both of these guys, youngish players. Like, we're waiting for them to have that moment where they step up to the next level and they show that they're a Ladero level player in this league and maybe beyond. This is a good tournament, a big tournament for both those guys.
Couple hipsters, Dave and Doyle, figures. I'm going with the Kalen train here. It's not Carlos Vela. I'm going Alejandro Pozuelo. I just think Toronto FC, their pedigree, their ability, his chance to just change games on his own and be the fulcrum, whether it's with Josie Altidore as the false nine we saw last year in the playoffs. Alejandro Pozuelo is going to have the big moments. He's going to have the highlights. He's going to be on one of the best teams. I think they'll be at least in the semifinals. Pozuelo is my pick. But of course, who wins this gets the prize money, the CCL spot. But you also got to win those group stage games because they matter for the regular season. We chatted with Colorado Rapids head coach Robin Fraser about how he's preparing for this tournament and what it means.
I think this is a year of change and a year of uncertainty, a year of adaptability. So now it's about trying to get as ready as we can for the beginning of July and then continue to progress through that, hopefully, and have the ability to win something at the end of August. Very different than you look at a long-term plan of trying to build a team. This is the tournament, and it's exciting and it's different. So I feel like now the plan is, can we be as ready as we can for the first game? And then can we do what we need to do to get through those games while maybe getting better and sharper? And then obviously, if you're fortunate enough to get through the group stages, then it's how do you win this game? And how do you win the next game? And how do you win the next game? So in terms of building style of play, I think there's an overall methodology that doesn't change. But certainly we will be looking at trying to accelerate, given the time that we've had off, trying to accelerate certain parts of the game that we think are going to help us win games.
All right, guys, the moment has come. The prediction. Who is going to win the MLS is Back tournament? Kalen, who you got, man?
Well, I normally go with the obvious, so I'd go for either Seattle or Toronto, but this is 2020, man. So I'm going with the New York Red Bulls. And when I think about it more, I realize that they're able to capitalize on mistakes. I think this is a tournament where they haven't had a lot of time to prepare. The press, the style of play, Chris Armas. I think this group, the depth, the youth, they get it done. Red Bulls, hosting the trophy at the end of this. Let's go.
Love it. Love it.
Caitlin stole my troll pick. I was like, I'm gonna pick the Red Bulls. All right, I'll do you one
That's
better.
your brand. I'm sorry, Doyle.
FC Cincinnati time. This tournament is chaos. 2020 is chaos. What would be more chaotic than FC Cincinnati going from the worst defensive team of all time to literal champions of anything a year later? 2020, this tournament, FC Cincinnati, I am on the train.
I picked Nagby to win MVP. I got to go all in. Columbus Crew, get it done for me. If they get out in the group stage, I'll just stop watching. So there it is.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice. That might have been my pick if I wasn't so confident in Toronto FC. I think they make this thing happen. They've been in so many finals over the years. They know how to get there. They have the best players. They have the most steps. Greg Vanney can be tactically flexible, which I think will be super important here. My pick is Toronto. Let us know what you think at ExtraTime on Twitter. And let us know how you're watching this thing, how you're experiencing the MLS is Back is tournament. Use the hashtag MLS is back. Tweet at us. Enjoy the tournament, everybody. And tune into ExtraTime Mondays and Thursdays, anywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Enjoy the soccer.